Hey there, this is round one, game one of the Dominion 2018 Championship. I'm playing this against Monomandan, and it's basically best of seven. Well, first the 3.5 wins the whole match. So this is the first board. This one was tough because you don't really have draw except for King's Court, but the idea here for me was if you could get enough capitals with, let's say, Vampire or something, and then you just rush for provinces like that. That was my plan, kind of. And you do some catapult things. You trash down, you get up some treasures and some capitals. I didn't think King's Court would be worth it because everything else, nothing except for guide draws, and when you King's Court the guide, you have to call the guide, and it's weird. Yeah, so here I actually undo because I wasn't going to buy anything anyway, so I figured just trash the copper. Just for the discard attack. So yeah, I wasn't trying to do anything sophisticated here. I was just trying, copying the game number. So definitely here the discard attack is going to be good because there's already so little draw, and so yeah, already I already start going for the capitals because I was just trying to spike provinces, spike some good treasures, and having like a few good turns instead of a bunch of ones where it hits 6 or something. My opponent was kind of doing similar things, going for remake instead of going for remake, going for more trashing than me, going for militia, whereas I went for the horse traders to try to spike 5 into try to defend against attacks, both catapult and militia. Here, I really wanted to maximize how many vampires I was playing, so I could get more capitals and the vampires do the attack and all sorts of nice stuff. So my opponent actually does go for the King's Court, which I found interesting. Now, it turns out that the decks are thin enough that you can actually get some good mileage out of the King's Court. As far as I could tell anyway, I couldn't exactly see my opponent missing the King's Courts, but you have guide to set up stuff. Here I was hoping to draw like a copper off the guide here, but we'll see what happens. Actually ended up drawing a vampire, which is not going to be fun. Here, I really should have trashed the capital for the discard attack and the cursing. I didn't think of, for some reason my brain blanked out at that. I just wanted more capitals, or I felt like having 2 capitals was better than just having the 1, even though the deck's, well, my deck isn't so thin. I'm just trashing with catapult and bat. So my deck was going to get thin, but not super thin. So yeah, you also have guide to prevent against the discard attacks, but still opted not to, so I could pay the debt and then have a clean shuffle. So my opponent trashed the horse traders, get the vampire, and something that wasn't immediately obvious to me is that you can remake the King's Courts into the province here too. So yeah, King's Court sounds pretty good. Here I'm getting extra treasures just because I thought in the long run having more treasure to pay off debt a bit sooner was worth having the 5 debt that turn. So here I debate if I want to buy something, either silver or guide here. Guide might have been good, but silver is also nice for trashing with catapult, which I don't think I end up doing, but it's there. It's there to do. My opponent gets the second King's Court. So you're going to see that the King's Courts have another good application here. Well, specifically with Ritual, I figured that would be an interesting card here, but with King's Court you get a lot of points. You get 7 minus the curse, and my opponent's hex kind of whiffed there. So here I'm debating if I want to get more debt, or if I just want to let's say buy 3 and have to pay 6 debt, or just have to pay the 3 debt. I opt to keep the 6 debt because I feel like guides are going to be really good here, especially when the greeting phase starts. The greeting phase has already kind of started. So now that all the estates are trashed, there's no extra estates for points, so I'm exactly 1 province behind here, but still at this point I'm not too concerned. Here, you can just do copper, but so honestly, there's treasure map here, and I kind of blanked out during the game that I just completely didn't notice the treasure map. I don't think it mattered, but yeah, here's where it's nice to have a bunch of capitals where you could just kind of get those spike province turns. So they were doing what I was hoping to do. It's just you have to pay 9 across several turns. Here again, I still want I do want the vampires, so I do opt to trash the coppers here. My opponent, meanwhile, has played so many remakes actually. So whatever they end up doing here, I keep the copper, so I have to fiddle with this debt. My opponent's been playing kind of the trash route, kind of playing similar, going for the capitals, but doing getting a few different cards, going for the remakes and the militias and the king's courts, whereas I was trying to keep it a bit more simple. But you'll see how it works out. It's actually my opponent does end up doing some really nice things with his deck towards the end. So I was very happy to hit fear here. So trying to figure out what I just gained here. Yeah, I gained the duchy, so I think there's very few provinces left here. So yeah. So the thing is, if you can't buy anything the thing with the capitals is they can pay off the debt of another capital, but then you just get more debt. So if you're not going to do anything productive with that being out of debt that turn, it was kind of pointless to even play. So again, let's say with a capital I could buy a duchy, or I can just decide to be debt free. So here my opponent is starting to get the ritual points. So I trashed the duchy there. And the thing with ritual is it sorts of points and it's cheaper. So I think if you're trashing a duchy, it's kind of like you bought an estate. Well, it's +2 and then -1 of the curse. But you could trash curses. You have several trashers, and in fact he is trashing some curses here. Yeah, so here it's more important to get at least a guide in the tavern mat so that you can maybe call it, but I end up calling it anyway. Here debating whether to get the duchy or to just hope to spike a province. I figured here I could get another capital, and that would maybe help spike towards the end, but so I do end up getting a capital here with 1 province left instead of the duchy. And so I think if I had this hand, I would have had 20, and that would have been enough for province. But I'm gonna get hit by militia here. So I didn't even realize. I'm not even sure I realized I had enough money for province with this hand at the time. But it's my opponent's my opponent actually has the so he does have the militia. So there, with just the 3 capitals, I would have been 1 short. So I'm just trying to pay off debt here, and while I'm in this much debt, my opponent is just has the time to make up the point difference. Yeah. So the way this is, so yeah, I was hoping to get good, some more way to pay off debt, but it's just I have too many green cards here, so it's not going well for me here, and pretty soon I think I'm sure my opponent will be able to also pay off the debt soon and get something going. So it gets a nice draw off the, and then it's enough for the province. And that's the first game for my opponent. It was actually very well played on my opponent's part. Really showed me who's boss there. Thanks.